Hello, money ceilings. How are yours influencing your results? Hello, it's Victoria and Gillian here from Money, Love, Immersion. And today we're going to be telling you more about money ceilings, what these actually are, and importantly, what you can start doing to change this for you, because you right now are probably not even aware that you have money ceilings. If you follow Gillian and I for any length of time, you will know that we talk about money. We talk about money stories. We talk about money values. We talk about our experiences and our beliefs around money. And money ceilings is connected to all of that, but it stands alone as a subject, really, doesn't it, Gillian? Do you want to start off by telling us a little bit more about what a money ceiling actually is?
Yeah, so money ceiling is interesting because it's the upper limit of the money that let's say that you receive, your income in your life. And you might get that from a job or from your business or even from a sort of whatever sources, rental income, wherever you're getting your money from. But the money ceiling is the upper limit to that. And the interesting part about it is it's psychological or energetic, however you want to define it. And what we're going to show our listeners today is it's internal. It's a limit that we have actually set ourselves, which might sound crazy. It's like, but I want to raise, but I want my business to grow, but I want my rental incomes to increase, or wherever you get your income from. I don't want to keep it fixed, and yet we do. It's a reality that we keep it fixed. So I think that's the sort of theoretical example or theoretical definition, but we'll need examples to really see how it plays out in our life.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I suppose starting with some examples, I know that it's so easy when you look back now and you reflect and you can see, oh, okay, this was a money ceiling that I'd reached. But I know for me, I had a real strange feeling when I, at the age of 30, started earning probably the more than my parents had earned at the point they retired. And at that point, I remember feeling quite uncomfortable about it and a bit embarrassed to talk about what that money was that I was earning, and trying to hide the advert so that my parents didn't see, so they wouldn't know how much I was earning from that role. And interestingly, I felt quite uncomfortable about that. But now on reflection, I recognize that that was also a money ceiling for me, because then I spent the following 10, if not 12 years, absolutely staying at that point. When it came to salary, I moved jobs, and they were sometimes sideways steps, and sometimes they were promotions, but always the salary ended up being pretty much that figure. And that, I think, for me was a money ceiling. And of course I can see it with such clarity now, but and it for 10 years of my life, particularly the 10 years where I think I felt most frustrated around money, I was operating with this money ceiling and not moving past it. And this is something
Yeah,
we see, isn't it?
absolutely. And what's also interesting, what I've had the experience of, is um, you can, it's almost like your money ceiling is defined by how much money you think you're worth. And in my case, it was like per hour. So when I got an increase, so also sort of as a young employee, and I'd start getting increases. And in the beginning, they were fairly big, getting us, and we started off as engineers in training, and then sort of every year we'd get a fairly big increase. And every time I'd get an increase, which was just getting me to the basic level, I'd start working extra hours. I would like try and earn my increase by working more, not accepting that I was simply worth more because I had now gone through the training program and I was now into, having had several years experience. And that habit stuck with me for 20 years. As I would do better, and even as I started my consulting business and I'd start sort of earning more than you do in a working for a company, I'd start putting in the extra hours. So I wasn't really increasing my prices because I'd increase
Mm,
my price, but then I'd put in double the time. So,
mm, mm.
and sort of really be fooling myself. I was about to say fool my customers, but I wasn't. I was fooling myself because I'd put in, I don't know, 30 hours instead of the 15 hours that I'd quoted at X rate.
Sure.
Um, so that was another money ceiling. I was just working more hours to even it out.
Yeah, and that's so interesting actually, as you were talking there, because you mentioned that was a habit that you got
Mm,
into. And I think that's one that a lot of people, when people come, for coaching and turn up in the Money Love
mm,
Immersion program, you know, you have a lot of people working all the hours and just
mhm,
kind of not getting the results they want. Or like you say, that feeling that actually if they are given more, they have to do more and show up
mm,
more. And that's interesting. I mean, actually, as we're talking now, I've never really properly considered that as a money ceiling, but it absolutely is, isn't it? It's kind of almost like the ceiling is the action of getting the
mm,
money, that it's got to
mm.
be hard and tough. And, actually, yeah, if you're giving me
Yeah,
more, I've got to show up more. I've got to work longer hours. I've got to stress myself out, be seen last leaving the office. Yeah, that's just really interesting. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up, because yeah, that's just that's just it's so
yeah.
fascinating talking about this stuff, isn't it? Um, but this is and money ceilings as well. We also see it, don't we? I know I have a lot of clients that I work with who say they just want to replace their salaries. If they've gone for self-employed, so I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, and their real aim is to just replace the salary they were earning in their corporate career. And that again is another money ceiling, isn't it?
Hmm. Yeah.
Mm,
And it's this, and I mean, it's, you've put somewhere along the line, and when you said the example from your parents, and honestly, that's probably where most of our money stories come from, is, or our parents or family sort of, by the time you start in the working world, you've got a fixed idea of what a huge amount of money is and what a normal amount of money is and how much money you should be earning. And these numbers, it's, I suppose it's the same as when a kid says, oh, you're so old, and you're like 20. And
yeah,
then you become 20 and old's 40. And then
yeah.
when you're 50, old is 90. I
Mm,
mean, it's that same concept with money, is that we have this idea of what is a fair rate and what
mm,
is the expectation for such a rate. And it's almost like that equation. I must put in so much time and so much energy to get so much money. And we just, if the money changes, then we think, oh, we better put in more energy or more time. And it's so exactly what you're saying is that you end up replacing your salary or putting
mm.
in double the hours. And so, I mean, on that example of the entrepreneur, I mean, you and I have discussed before, but also the entrepreneur who grows their business but gives themselves the worst salary ever.
Oh, I know. We see this one a lot, don't we? Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And yet, absolutely on paper they're growing their business, they're opening up new opportunities, and that's really exciting. But when you actually sort of dig in, yeah, they're paying themselves the absolute worst.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they've kind of remained at that money ceiling, even though their business might have grown. For them personally, they've stayed at whatever that ceiling was for them, haven't they? Yeah, yeah.
and it's and it's I mean, if I think of a made up example, but I mean, it's like someone's, let's say, an assistant in an organization who's got a junior role but knows they're so capable of doing more. And I don't know, let's say in the art and design world, but because often with the entrepreneurs, it's the non-standard businesses where people get caught out, because a lot of these money ceiling stories, I think, they come from a bygone era of, you've got to
Mm,
work so many hours for so much money, and it's a fixed ladder that you've got to climb up and so on. So if our young art assistant goes off and starts their own agency, the money ceiling is, well, I'm just an assistant. There's a self-worth, which is, I mean, that's really it always comes back
mm,
to that, but there's a self-valuation of, well, I'm not worth much. So then they get in help, they get in professionals, they're doing a brilliant job, they're getting in all the clients, which is actually, I mean, they had the vision,
mm.
but they're not paying themselves as a CEO. They're still
No,
paying themselves as this junior
assistant.
assistant. Whereas
Yeah.
they've put together this whole team who are doing amazing things. They've got
Mm,
all the responsibility of meeting those salaries every month, of getting new clients, of, I mean, and they just don't see it, that
mm.
they actually are a CEO and are perfectly valuable enough. Their ceiling can, yeah, it can, the sky's the
Well,
limit.
Well,
You,
this is it, isn't it? This is the thing, and that we, absolutely mustn't forget to touch on here, because the ceiling can be, yeah, taken down, because the sky really is the limit.
mm,
You can move the ceiling if you want. You can you can move it in
mm,
over time, or you can just absolutely get rid of it. But
mm,
and how do we do that? I suppose is the question. Anyone watching this is going to be, well, how do I do that? Because well, actually, before we skip to that, I wonder if it might be quite nice to ask people to notice if they've got a money ceiling. And I know they're not able to interact right now, but if you're sitting there and you're thinking, yeah, do you know what? When I set up my business, I thought I just want to get to X amount because that's what my salary was, then you're setting a limit. If you're uncomfortable, perhaps talking about the money you earn when you get to a certain point, that again is probably indicating a money ceiling. Are there any other telltale signs that you think people might want to watch out for?
working overtime,
Yeah.
working increased increased
Yeah.
hours, yeah, paying, giving raises and increasing prices, but then not seeing, not sharing in it yourself, um,
Mm,
not letting the money sit with you. So
mm,
the second, your, I don't know, let's say your price increases, then you suddenly change to, I don't know, making your product out of more valuable materials, or so you
mm,
actually you eating into the margins. Um, yeah, I mean those are the ones I can think of. But anywhere where you find, if you have been working harder and longer and
mm,
creating more value and doing greater, more brilliant things, and yet your quality of life and your lifestyle and your dreams are not coming true, are not
mm.
improving, then you've put a ceiling in above yourself.
Yeah,
Because I mean,
absolutely.
well, especially
Absolutely.
as entrepreneurs, all the people we work with
Yeah.
are doing this because they want to improve their lifestyle. Now, that
Mm,
might mean for one person a more luxurious home. It might be for another person only working 3 hours a day. It might be for another person being able to travel with their family. I mean, improved lifestyle, security
mm,
would be a big one.
mm.
They want to really
Yeah.
build up a nest egg that they can just go into retirement feeling safe and secure for their kids as well. So all of those are lifestyle reasons. But if you've been working hard
Mm.
and you've been doing all the things, and logically you should be further along, then the chances are you've got a money ceiling, and it's not your boss, and it's not the economy,
No, it's not, is
it's
it?
not the market.
Yeah, and actually the phrase that sort of I've written down here as you were talking then is that one, and I don't know if it's one that you've heard, but it's that, you live to your means, don't you? So when people
Mm,
get that
mhm,
promotion, like you say, and they're like, oh wow, this is amazing, I've got so much more money each month, and then 6 months on, and they couldn't tell you where it's gone.
mm,
They literally couldn't tell you, but they just know that they're living exactly as they were before. Something's got to have changed, but they can't see it. So
mm,
that's the phrase as well. So if you find yourself hearing that, but I love that point, Gillian. It's got, you know, yeah, very little to do with our bosses, and yeah, and the economy as well.
mm,
It's just almost we collect the evidence, don't we, that helps us reinforce the ceiling we have. And the
mm,
stories, of course, that
mm,
we're not talking about today,
mm,
but the stories, of
mm.
course, that we tell ourselves around money as well.
Yeah, and I think I really want to emphasize that because, yeah, there are always tough times, there are always situations, there are always circumstances. So that this is not denying that there can be
Mm.
circumstances in a person's life, or like great global events that affect you. But if on on average you kind of feel like you're treading water and you're doing more and you're creating more and you've got all these years of experience, and you feel like you're doing the things, and yet you're still coming out at the same level, then that money ceiling has not been put in place by anyone else except yourself. And it's
Mm.
and it's internal, and that's what's very, I mean, it's difficult to accept sometimes, but for some people, I mean, especially the people we work with and that we've seen in Money Love Immersion, who've done some of the personal development work, they just didn't realize, oh my gosh, that's also part of it.
Yeah,
Because it's like,
huge part of
I've
it.
been putting this wall or the ceiling in place,
Mm,
and I just
mm,
accepted that I've got to work within the boundaries underneath it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, it is just truly fascinating. So I suspect people watching this will now be thinking, yeah, okay, I've got some money ceilings at play here. So what can they do about it once they've kind of recognized where their ceilings perhaps are?
Excuse me. I mean, well, this is all money. A money ceiling is a very, let's say, special, entrenched money story. I mean, it's about awareness. It's catching yourself, and I think once a person catches it and realizes that this is an internal situation, not an external one, and that's what we're talking about with money ceiling. We're talking about the internal one.
Mm.
Is so if your internal money ceiling exists and you've realized that, is that I would challenge you to collect the evidence of it. Just take note. I mean, we're so good at collecting evidence for where the rest of the world, the outer one. So I know that might also be a contributing factor, but that's not the money ceiling we're talking about here. We're talking about the internal money ceiling. So collect the evidence of it just to really prove to yourself that this is it. And then, I mean, this is the inner work. It's not a 2-minute cure. There is no 2-minute cure, because this is now digging down through the money ceiling story, figuring out origin stories, realizing, like your example was great, was I don't earn more than my parents earn. Mine was, I mean, I always saw my dad working really hard. So
Right.
I'm just like,
Okay.
got to work really hard. That's how you adult. You just
Yeah.
work really, really, really
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's like that's incongruent with
Mm.
entrepreneurial way of living. I mean, he wasn't an entrepreneur, so this is just, it's really digging into it. So I think that's always my personal way, is always journaling. I love writing. I write to think. I know some people like to talk it out, but I would personally, that's where I start, is dig down and pick one and then start unpicking it.
Yeah,
I don't know what
absolutely.
your example is how you work through it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what I was going to suggest people do actually is have a dig into their stories as well. And I know today isn't about the stories, but once you've got that awareness on the ceiling, think about perhaps where that's come from. And like Gillian says, you can do that through journaling. You can just go and have a night. I mean, my favorite thing is just go off for a walk, and and I tend to just think about it, and usually get somewhere with my thought process. But yeah, just have a think, because society's so good. I mean, the whole thing that you mentioned about grown-ups work hard, that's what being an adult is. I mean, and we're told that, aren't we? Enjoy yourselves while you're young, because when you get commitments, life gets serious. And and you're like, okay, so all right, brilliant. Really looking forward to growing up. But just look at the stories as well. We're going to do a follow-on. I think probably next week we'll do a conversation perhaps around stories, which will be really helpful for you as well. But just notice, like that, like you say, the evidence that you've collected over the years. And yeah, it's a story. We can change it. So it's, once you've got it, it's having that awareness, really, isn't it? And working from there.
And I think a useful place is that if ever you find yourself blaming someone else, just question,
Mm.
is that true?
Oh, I love
And
that.
sometimes it is true. I'm not denying that there's
Mhm.
external situations. Please don't get me wrong. I do know that there's all sorts of unfairness in the world, and there's all sorts
Yeah.
of um, you know, bad stuff going on. But this is about the part that's within your control is a lot bigger than what you think.
Mm.
And that's why, so if you're blaming someone else, that's often a clue. It's like, well, is that true? Because I know that my mom is like, oh, well, times are tough.
Yeah.
Got to work hard. You haven't been there long enough. I don't know.
Mm.
There's also this belief of, well, if you're there long enough, then you should get rewarded. And I mean, big
Yes.
corporate prove that's a complete lie.
Yeah.
It's a total lie. There is so much evidence to prove that the longer you're there, the more you get. That just doesn't hold. Not
Mm.
anymore. I don't
Mm.
know if it did in the past, but
Mm.
um, but it's so when you find those sort of comments, or you're making those sort of excuses about your income and your earnings, challenge it. Challenge yourself.
Mm.
Is this true? Why do I think this is true? Is this really
Yeah.
true?
Yeah. That's a
Have I
very
got evidence
powerful
that it's
question.
not true?
Yeah. I mean, that is, a very powerful question. It really is. It really is. So, yeah, it's awareness. And then it is, like you say, it's knowing that really the sky is the limit. It's, going to be coming down to the choices you make going forwards. And obviously, we're not going to cover that today, but, we do talk about this a lot. So do like and follow us, because we do share a lot of conversations related to money, related to your relationship to money, related to helping you heal a lot of the aspects around your money relationship as well. So we do talk about this a lot, don't we? So yeah, do like and follow us. You'll find us on social media. And of course, if you found us on YouTube, take note, because we'll be back next week with another conversation. Is there anything else today, Gillian, that you think we should cover, or we should dip into a little further?
No, no,
Yeah.
I think the main message is that there is such a thing as a money ceiling,
Mm.
an internal money ceiling, and it's a lot more powerful than you would think it is.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really worth dismantling your own one, because it's crazy.
Yeah, we'll leave you with something to certainly think about. Brilliant. That's been great. Yes, so we'll catch up with you soon. Thank you so much for listening. See you later.